A brand new installment of From the Buzzbin, a survey of new music, tonight featuring electro-instrumental kings the Chemical Brothers, the talkative queen of teen angst Fiona Apple, and the Britpop of Blur.
Some people kind of ask, like, oh, how can you write that kind of stuff if you're only 18? Like, as if they don't believe that I wrote it, or they just don't believe that it's possible. Like, I'm going to stand up and be like, you know, well, you're right, I'm sorry, I'm 27 and I didn't really write it and whatever.
What a cruel thing to pretend. What a cunning way to condescend. Once my lover and now my friend.
Welcome to the world of Fiona Apple, where personal struggle and heartfelt emotions form the landscape of her hauntingly beautiful songs. Songs whose subject matter is surprisingly mature for a first-time composer who's still in her teens.
I've had people ask me questions about, like, you know, have you had like a million relationships or something? Like, you're only 18, well, 19 now, but like, you know, you're only this kid and you haven't had so many years to experience everything. But I'm such an incredibly, stupidly sensitive person that everything that happens to me, I experience it really intensely. I feel everything very deeply. And when you feel things deeply and you think about things a lot and you think about how you feel, you learn a lot about yourself. And when you know yourself, you know life. The song is basically about the frustration of being misunderstood and the tendency of the misunderstood to kind of sink into their own world, or my tendency to do that. So this is called Sullen Girl.
Critics of Apple's ability to write deeply emotional music at such a young age need only consider the singer's life experience, which includes a traumatic rape at age 12.
This is a tough situation for me because I don't want to trivialize it, but I also don't want to make it something bigger than it is. You know, I don't want it to be my identity.
Days like this, I don't know what to do with myself all day and all night.
But it, you know, it's basically within my music. It's part of who I am, like all of my experiences are.
A sullen girl, sullen girl.
Apple, a native New Yorker who grew up in an artistically inclined family, found her own musical path when she discovered the piano and began using the instrument as an emotional conduit that ultimately brought her music to the masses.
I always like to just sit at the piano and just, you know, improvise. If you feel overwhelmed by something that's going on in your life, you just feel like sitting down and doing whatever it is you do. You write or you play piano or you paint or whatever, and I just felt like improvising and letting whatever I felt come out through my fingers.
Unlike most artists who tour incessantly before being signed, Apple was discovered on the strength of a demo tape and didn't even see a stage until a pressure-packed performance last summer to a crowd of record label executives.
It was in Paris in front of 700 people, mainly like Sony people and press people, and I'm like this little girl who's never played before in my life. I felt like such an ass. But no, it's weird because I see it from two different perspectives. On one hand, I think I'm really, really lucky because I never had to play a gig before I got signed. But then on another hand, I think I'm really unlucky because, you know, just like anything else, you kind of have to develop your stage presence and develop being comfortable.
I've been a bad, bad girl. I've been careless with a delicate man.
I had like a nervous breakdown after my first performance. I went back and I was like crying but it was weird. It wasn't like I was crying. At the time I said because I was like, I sucked. But I don't think that I actually thought that I sucked. I think that it was actually just because it was like an emotional release because I'd been waiting to do it so long, you know? And not to be, I don't know if this is going to make any sense, but it's kind of the same thing like for girls, I think like when they lose their virginity, you know, and they cry, it's not because they're sad because they had sex or because they're so happy that they had sex. It's just like an emotional release because it's something very important that has happened to you. It's very like life affirming and it overwhelms you. And it was the same thing when I went on stage. It was like something that I felt that I'd been waiting to do for so many years, basically my whole life.
The first single from Fiona's debut album Tidal was the track Shadow Boxer, an MTV buzz clip, which also marked the singer's first foray into the visual medium.
The thing was that I hadn't done a photo shoot yet, and there was like some big Sony branch meeting, and they wanted a visual on me, and so they just sent a camera crew into the studio one night, and that was my first time on camera, and we didn't prepare for it. We didn't have some kind of like concept. It was just really cool film. Shadow Boxer is about just angry desperation, wanting, needing, you know, when your mind is fighting with your heart, when you know that something isn't good for you, but you want it anyway, and you're trying really hard to do the right thing for yourself, but then finally you're just like, you know, I'm gonna do what I want to do. I gotta do what my heart wants me to do, otherwise, you know, I won't learn anything and then my mind won't be any good to me.
With Tidal already certified gold and a second MTV buzz clip for the track Sleep to Dream, Fiona Apple continues doing what she wants to do while keeping a clear perspective on her newfound fame.
I remind myself a lot about how cool it is that all of this is happening, as much stress as it puts on me, and as much as sometimes I just feel like, I don't know, like kicking a wall or something like that. I think it's the healthiest thing for me to do is just remind myself of how lucky I am so I don't start taking it for granted and start becoming some kind of little like premature diva or something like that.
I got my feet on the ground and I don't go to sleep to dream. You got your head in a cloud, you're not all what you see.
I don't want to start doing this for the wrong reason. I want to stay the way I am and experience the real joys of this whole thing, which is the writing and the singing and the performing, you know.